good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. You're very welcome. It's Rob Magee, CEO from Ingenio, and delighted to welcome you here this morning to our live webinar. For those of you who don't know me, I run an organization called Ingenio. We've got a couple of businesses. One is a recruitment business that works specifically and exclusively with tech, software, and SaaS organizations. And the other business is Ingenio Learning. That's an e-learning business where we help people like you get hired by technology, SaaS, and software businesses. Delighted to welcome you, whether you're tuned in live this morning on Zoom, or whether you're watching the recording, or indeed watching back on our YouTube channel, or listening in on our podcast. Delighted to have you with us today. And very, very excited to be talking about the topic that we're focusing in on this month, which is all around the creation of your CV. Over the course of April, we're going to be running 4 sessions, or we ran one last week, the first last week. We are tuning into CV preparation, okay? So last week I spoke about the things that you really needed to focus in on before you start writing your CV. Today I'm going to be talking about the 4 most important elements of CV. And then we've got 2 more sessions over the course of the rest of the month that I think you'll get a lot of benefit and value from. Just to kick off, I wanted to remind you of an exercise that we practice and preach to every single candidate that we work with, regardless of experience or age, or background or role, or whatever the case may be. And this, the Ingenio Profile Grid, is an exercise. Is a tool that we built when we started Ingenio 6 years ago. And what it does is it's a worksheet that helps you really understand the types of organization that you want to work for, and indeed that you don't want to work for. And it allows you to be very specific in terms of your targeting around that piece. Secondly is around the role that you want to do or that you are doing. The third piece is the team that you want to be part of or involved in. And lastly then, your package, right? And what I mean by that is, you know, what do you want to get paid? What does the construct of earnings and benefits and all that type of stuff look like? So that's very, very important. And the Ingenio Profile Grid is a tool that exists within the course that we have built. So if you want to have a look at that, obviously, look, you need to invest in the course, but it's really, really important exercise for you to be really precise on, really accurate, really clear on, so that you can get a CV telling the story that you want to go and tell, and effectively becoming your shop window. If I move on to I guess the meat of today, for me, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of sources or places that you can go to that can help you write a CV. You can go to private individuals or businesses. There are plenty of tools online. There is a ton of free collateral on the internet, and there is obviously a kind of a reasonably well founded and thought out structure that a CV should have, that, you know, starts with clearly your contact details, your profile, your work experience, your education, your skills, maybe some personal information, or whatever the case may be. And for the purposes of today, I don't want to talk about how to structure a CV, because I think there's a ton of information out there. And for the most part, the CVs that we see, and we see thousands of them every week, for the most part, CVs are, you know, they're pretty good. And they look, you know, they're reasonably well written, or they're well laid out, or whatever the case may be. But the stuff that we really, when we dig into the CV and the various different sections, I want to talk to you today about what we expect to see in a CV. And if you don't see it, you're immediately falling kind of short, and you're falling short quite quickly and by a long way. So the first thing is, a lot of people don't spend enough time and energy and effort on your profile. And by the way, your profile and your CV should be identical to the profile on your LinkedIn profile. And that is an absolute mandatory. And the profile is really, it's telling your story. So it's a little bit about you. It's a little bit about your background. It's a little bit about your beliefs. It's a little bit about your interests and what it is that you specifically are looking to do. And if you think about that, in that profile section, whether it's 3 to 5 lines maximum, by the way, in terms of duration, the reader needs to be able to they need to be able to get real clarity on you as an individual and you as a professional, and what you will be able to bring to the organization. So I think that's really, really important that you tune into that. And you might remember, if you listened to if you watched or you were tuned into last month's series where we were talking about the interview, there's a section in the interview which we call the you story. And the profile, your profile section on your CV or on your LinkedIn profile needs to be identical to how you're going to explain and describe yourself in a physical interview. So what I've always found very useful as an exercise is record yourself like you were going in an interview, and record yourself and give an overview and a background of you as an individual, you as a professional, you in terms of, I guess, what you're looking for and what your kind of interests and beliefs are. And what I want you to go and do then is basically lift that up and drop it into your CV. So without necessarily sitting down and writing your profile piece, what I actually want to get you to go and do is record yourself on video giving a 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 line introduction. Once you're happy with that, take it, transcribe it, drop it into your CV. You'll get some massive, massive value out of doing that. And really, what are you looking to do there? The objective is that you want to tell the best story about you right at the top of the CV. And that's the first thing that obviously somebody's going to read when they open up your CV. So that's the first piece, your profile. The second thing is your work experience. And it was funny, last week I asked a question on the poll, what are people really struggling with? And obviously, look, the work experience was right up there as one of the big struggles or problems that people have. And I've had a couple of conversations with people who've done one-to-ones with me over the last couple of weeks, who have work experience, but it's entirely irrelevant to the job that they want to go and do. So I think, look, that's the first thing that I would say to you. What you need to do is, from a work experience perspective, when someone is looking at your CV, when they're cascading down, when they're viewing down your CV, the first thing that they are going to be looking for is, where have you worked before? What experience have you gathered or gained? And this is really, really important, whether you've got loads of relevant work experience, whether you're, let's say, for example, trying to transition or pivot from one industry into another where maybe the skill sets are not that transferable, or indeed where you haven't picked up a huge amount of experience, relevant experience, or none at all. It's really, really important that you try and articulate what the expectations are of the job that you're applying for in some way, shape, or form in terms of the work experience that you've got. I had a really interesting question a couple of weeks ago, and let's say, for example, if you want to be a product manager, and you want to get into product management in a SaaS or software business, and clearly, you know, maybe you're coming straight from university or from a master's, and you simply don't have product experience. So how do you go about manufacturing that? Well, look, the very first thing that I would say is internships are an absolutely amazing way to go and do that. And clearly, as part of your university or your MBA or your education, you've probably got access to some form of work experience. And what I want you to try and do is obviously relate the work experience that you may have picked up as part of a project or an assignment or a scheme or whatever the case may be to that product management job. So what are the things that the product management job description is calling out or they're looking for, and how do you relate some of the experiences that you've got in some kind of assignment? So I think that's the first thing I would say to you. The second thing is, if you don't have work experience in the space where you're trying to go and get a job, then clearly you just need to try in as much as you possibly can, offer yourself up for as I said, internships, whether that's paid for or unpaid for, whatever the case may be, so that you can get that. But it's really, really important that your work experience screams comfort to the person that is going to be reading your CV. So that's really, really important. The third piece, and I think probably the biggest mistake that we see in people's CVs or resumes day in, day out, is people not talking about the outcomes or the impact or the output of the job that they go and do. In business, every organization exists, whether they're large, small, startup, whatever the case may be. Every single organization in tech, software, and SaaS, they exist clearly to deliver a product, manufacture or create a product, and sell that product and or service or piece of technology, be that hardware, software. So if you think about what every single organization ultimately is trying to do, is they're trying to sell something, they're trying to drive revenue. So there is a commercial or a business driver or an objective around most of those organizations. In some cases, businesses are very, very large and have very large, sorry, they might not even be large, but they've got operational expenditure or spend that they want to try and reduce. Why? Because they're trying to increase the profitability of the business. You've got other organizations that exist to deliver a really slick or amazing customer experience or customer orientated ethos. And again, so if you think about that, the driver for those businesses, why are they doing that? Well, if they have an amazing customer experience, their customers will stay with them, they'll spend more, they'll talk about them, they'll reference them, whatever the case may be. And in your job, whatever it is that you do in your job, whether you're a business analyst, whether you're a project manager, whether you're a product manager, whether you're an account executive, whether you are a software developer, it doesn't matter what job it is that you do, but ultimately the job that you do rolls up to some form of corporate or business or commercial objective or driver. And it's so unbelievably important that you are commercial enough to be able to connect the job that you do with some form of outcome or impact or output. It is amazing, particularly for people who are maybe less career orientated or career experienced. It's amazing how many people completely disregard that. And what we see really interestingly, with a lot of mid to senior experienced people is that they talk about the job that they do, but they don't connect that through with deliverables or outcomes or outputs. And I think the single biggest tip that I can get you to go and do is or question that I would ask you is there any reference in any way, shape or form to revenue or to a dollar number or a euro number or a sterling number? Is there any reference to some form of commercial number in your CV or resume? And if there isn't, there needs to be. Okay. The last thing I want to talk about is interests. And again, this is particularly relevant for people who, let's say, for example, maybe don't have the breadth or depth of work experience that, let's say, for example, they might ideally have, or that the job description or the employer is absolutely looking for. I find when we're looking at CVs and resumes, I find that you're always looking and you're always trying to find something that you can catch and connect into. And look, if there isn't something there in your profile or in your work experience or maybe in your education or the set of skills that you've got, then look, the last place that something can exist is in your interests. And people are inherently interested in other people, regardless of background or experience or whatever the case may be. So what I really want to try and get you to do is I really want to try and get you to think about being creative, and I want you to think about being impactful, positive, and actually have a little bit of fun with the interests that you personally have. And the reason being, if you can be really passionate about something, whatever that is, then people can really tune into that. And I think that's really, really important. I want to just show you as an example of a candidate that we've worked with, basically over the course of the last couple of years. So Javi is, as you can see, he's got a very strong profile here from a kind of a visual perspective, but also because of the role and the business and the industry that he's involved in, he's also talking about himself from a personal perspective. I don't really want to focus on, I think, by the way, I think this is an amazing CV and it's an amazing layout and template. But what I want to get you focused in on is I want to get you focused in on his achievements. So here on the right hand side, so you can see that he is hugely passionate and fiercely proud about those 4 things that he's basically called out as being achievements for him. And I think it's really interesting that if you were to tune in there and look, as someone who is hiring software developers and engineers, you can see that, he's calling out the fact that he's got a huge and heavy technical background. He's a nerd and he's proud, but there's also a bit of humor with that. So we're getting an exposure into Javi's personality a little bit. The really interesting thing that he's done here is, again, because he's in a creative industry and he was working in the music industry at the time, films and books and the visual side of things were really, really important to him. And so you can see that he's called out a number of films and books that he is obviously very interested in. And I think, look, if you're the type of individual that is into 1984 or Pulp Fiction, then very quickly, regardless of Javi's experience or skill sets or work experience or whatever, I think you're going to tune into that one really quickly. And there's a common interest, there's a common connection that will probably bind you and the potential interviewer together. And the last thing, which I absolutely love down here, is I spoke about interests, but we're talking here about his hobbies. And you can see here, there's 6 hobbies that Javi has listed out. And some of them are deeply personal, some of them are work orientated, and some of them are really kind of downtime stuff. So you can see here that section D, are having beers with his friends, especially watching Barcelona football games, which again just tells you a huge amount about the individual. And I think, again, let's say, for example, if you're lacking a section in your CV or resume, or you're lacking experience, what I'm saying to you is that you can definitely make it up in other areas that people will really tune into. Okay, so I hope that example is a really good example as to kind of how you can make your CV more impacting, not necessarily in terms of sections, but around 4 areas that I think you can have massive, you can drive massive value and definitely differentiate yourself on. Okay, so I hope that's clear. Just before I go to poll and questions, we have been talking about Ingenio Learning. So the course that we have developed, that we have built, specifically for people like you to help you get hired by technology and software businesses. It's available for purchase at ingenio-learning.com. What does it include? Well, look, it's normally priced at €100. There's a one-time discount for anyone who's tuned into the webinar today, and a significant reduction in price. That expires on Friday of this week. There are spaces available. And look, I think, you know, what you'll be able to see, and hopefully what you'll be considering right now, is €35 a good investment to be able to help myself differentiate, differentiate against all of the competition. So all of the stuff that we've just been talking about there over the last kind of 10 or 15 minutes, there are 20 modules in the course that allow you to go and do a whole heap more. Hopefully that resonates with you, and that is good perceived value for money. Really interesting to push you to our website there, because you'll be able to hear what people who've taken the course have said. And we've got this great stat that 90% of our students get hired by software, technology and SaaS businesses within 90 days after taking the course. And we're really, really proud of that. Really, really proud of that. We also offer a personalized one-to-one career coaching session. So maybe you've got an interview upcoming, maybe you're a little bit nervous about how to position yourself, or you want to do some live coaching, and this session is specifically with me. So that's a 1 hour long one-to-one session. If you want more information on that, type more info into the Q&A or into the chat box, and Lisa and Alex will get back to you. Definitely happy to share some information and some details on that.
They come out for